This is our outdoor crime scene investigation presentation. My name is Jose Artelejo.
I'm Sierra Marianas.
I'm Jessica Rios.
And I'm Michaela Wales.
Okay, so we received a call about a homicide scene at around 8 o'clock in the morning. We, the four of us, arrived to the scene at 9:56 a.m. We then talked to Detective Violet, who gave us information about the scene. She told us that there was one victim. Her name is Tara Johnson. She died on the way to the hospital, so she is deceased. She was born on March 20th, 1984. She was found on the ground with 3 gunshot wounds, one in the bicep, one in the side, and one in the abdomen, and the suspect is currently unknown.
So when we arrived to the crime scene, we were just trying to figure out our method as to what we were going to do, what each of us was going to do, and which search method we were going to use. So Jose and I were searching the crime scene, and we used the strip search method because there were 2 of us, and the area was closed off. It was a square area, and there were no large objects in our way, meaning that where we walked, we didn't have to walk around items unless they were evidence items. And we started from the northeast corner of the scene and searched west to the northwest corner.
As Michaela was saying, we used the strip search method, and we ended up searching the scene twice, and we even asked Jessica to step in after she did her thing, because we could not find the correct amount of evidence, which was 10. And after investigating the scene twice, we ended up actually finding 13 pieces of evidence because we're overachievers. And after talking to Detective Violet, we also found out, and we'll explain more later, that the victim had some torn clothes, and it was, or I thought at least it was debris at first, and it kind of messed it up, but we'll go over that later.
So as Michaela and Jose were trying to determine which crime scene method was the best for our scene, I decided to start taking the overall pictures. So I took 3 pictures at every corner of the scene. So here we have overalls from the southeast corner, overalls from the southwest corner, from the northeast corner, and the northwest corner.
So here we have the evidence items listed. The first one, we have the bullet casing number 1. 2 is the shoe impression. 3 is the bullet casing number 2. We have 4 is the paint mark. 5 is the Colt 9mm gun. 6 is a gun magazine with rounds in it. 7 is a live round from the chamber of the gun. 8 is a shoe with white substance on the bottom. 9 was the bullet graze impression. 10 is the long strand of hair. 11, we have the tool mark impression, and 12, we have torn fabric number 1, and 13 was our torn fabric number 2.
So for evidence items number 1 and 3, these are both the casings from rounds, and they were found in the northwest corner, and they were pretty close to each other. And from what Detective Violet told us, the woman had 3 bullet wounds, so we were looking for a 3rd casing. But what I had figured out was that when she was shot, she was actually not shot 3 times, but twice. And one of the bullet wounds, one of the bullets had entered through and had exited through her arm and then went into her side.
For evidence number 2 and 8, we have the shoe impression and the shoe. We begin the casting for the shoe impression at approximately 10:19 in the morning. And the cast did not completely dry by the time we finished, or by the time we had to go. So that resulted in 3 large pieces. The cast broke, so it gave into like 3 large pieces and all this little other debris that we all put into a smaller bag and then into another bag to make sure none of it was lost. And then the shoe was evidence number 8. And it had a white substance mark on the bottom of the shoe, as you can see right there, and it was a dirty black shoe. And that white substance mark was also evidence number 4, which you can see a picture of it right there on the top right screen. It was found near the shoe print or the shoe impression, and that white substance mark was also found on the bottom of the shoe. We don't know if the 2 relate to each other, But the lab can figure that out and see if they come from the same source.
So for the evidence pieces number 5, 6, and 7, that actually deals with the firearm. So number 5 is the firearm itself, which is a Colt 9mm multicolored gun that was found on the east side of the scene. It did have a live round in the chamber, excuse me. And then number 6 is the magazine itself. So we don't know how many rounds were in the magazine because we didn't check, but there's at least more than 3. And then number 7 was the live round that was found in the chamber. There was only 1 found, which shows that there was no jamming.
So here we have evidence number 9 and 11. Evidence number 9 is the bullet graze impression. We found this bullet graze in the wooden pole connected to the tree on the south tree square. We decided to collect this because we don't know if in fact it was a bullet graze, but we have reason to believe based on the other evidence and the victim, how she was shot. We have reason to believe that this was caused by a bullet hitting the tree. So we decided to use microsil on the pole. We waited for that to harden, and then we collected and packaged that. Evidence number 11 is the tool mark impression. It was found near the southwest corner of our scene. It was a dent in the brick that could have been made by a tool, so we also used microsil and waited for that to harden and collected that as well.
So here we have evidence number 10. So this is a long strand of hair, and the strand of hair was found on the east side of the south tree square. And we didn't know where this originated from. It could have been from one of our crime scene processors, but to be sure, we collected it and packaged that as well in a small coin envelope, and then the lab can process that and determine its origination.
And then here we have evidence number 12 and 13. Evidence number 12 was a torn piece of fabric. It was found in the north tree square, right next to the shoe impression. And evidence number 13 was another piece of torn fabric. It was found right in between the north and the south tree spot. This is where I might have messed up a little bit because I thought originally that it was a piece of debris, that both of them were just pieces of debris. But after speaking with the detective, she told me that the victim did tear their clothes or was found with some torn clothes. So then we ended up collecting it because it's better to be safe than sorry, and it could be a tear from the victim or the suspect.
All right, and then we move on to the rough sketch. And this was initially drawn out upon arrival to the crime scene with the help of Jessica. And we first started out by measuring those outside walls, and then we measured the benches as well as those tree squares. And then we took those evidence items and measured them relating to those nearby objects of the benches and the tree squares. And then here we have the final sketch. This is just basically a cleaned up version of the rough sketch. So we have each of those evidence items numbered. At the bottom, we have a legend, and it kind of lists off what each of those evidence items were, as well as another place of like describing the scene overall. And then we move on to the main theory. We decided as a group this was going to be our main theory. So the suspect and victim proceeded to enter into an altercation that became physical, causing the loss of a shoe and torn fabric. The suspect shot the victim once, released the first casing onto the ground. When the victim was falling to the ground, her shoe fell off. Once the victim was on the ground, the suspect proceeded to shoot the victim again, releasing the second casing onto the ground.
Here we have our alternate theory. We all decided this as a group that this would be our alternate theory. So we have the suspect and victim began to enter into a verbal altercation. The victim walked away. As the victim was walking away, the suspect then pulled out a gun and shot the victim once. The victim then turned around and the suspect shot her in the abdomen, resulting in the victim falling. The suspect ran away, and as the suspect was running away, their shoe fell off.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If you were able to go back and reprocess the scene, what would you do differently?
Very good question, Snoopy. Well, I think the first thing that we would have done was we would have made sure that we didn't rule out any of the evidence that or anything on scene that could have possibly been evidence, whether it was physical or just trace evidence. I also think that we could have done a lot better in casting instead of just immediately going and casting because of drying time. We should have actually taken pictures of the impression before we put the cast on it. I also think that if we would have mixed the casting a little bit better, like the plaster Paris a little bit better, then the cast would have came out a lot better and it probably would not have cracked into 3 pieces. I just don't think that the ratio of plaster to water was correct.
Are there any other questions?
Hello. Do you think that you made any mistakes or forgot anything? And if yes, what were they?
I think our biggest mistake was taking the impression before taking a picture of it. As Michaela said, we were so focused on getting the impression dry in time, given the amount of time that we were given to process the scene, that we really didn't think about taking a picture of it. So that was our biggest mistake. And going over evidence in the scene or potential evidence in the scene, I think we should have chosen a different search method that would have allowed us, each member of the group, to search a specific spot. So the grid method or the zone method would have helped us there.
Thanks.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks, mate.
And this concludes our crime scene investigation presentation.
Thank you.